absolutely right, and it probably is time to start taking a little bit of action.
And what are the sort of things that parents should be looking out for, though? Can you just say a little bit more about that in terms of a change in behaviour?
Definitely. Well, the first thing I would say is it's really useful to think about how old is the child, and the age really contextualises the approach that we tend to take. So, for example, with a younger child, they may find it more difficult to articulate all of their anxious thoughts, feelings and behaviours. So for a younger child, they're going to be more likely to act out those anxious thoughts through behaviour. So you may see what you think as a parent is a really angry outburst, but it's really useful just to take the time to think, oh, is there something that's really underlying that? Is there something a bit more going on? Whereas with an older, sort of maybe somebody in their teenage years, anxiety is probably going to be a little bit easier to spot.
Okay. And how can anxiety impact on school life? Can it be different in how it impacts on ordinary day-to-day home life?
I think the thing with anxiety is it can creep into any aspect of your life. It can creep into your home life, your friendships, your relationships. At school, school refusal is a huge, huge area of concern that we hear about every day on the helpline. So I think, anxiety about attendance, bullying, exam pressures. There are so many challenges and pressures that young people face at school that it can be incredibly anxiety-inducing. And also for younger ones, it's really tempting to just look at behaviour as the only mechanism to really identify is there an indicator of anxiety. But for younger ones, they often get physical symptoms as well. So, I remember being a little one at maybe 7 or 8 years of age, and every time I was stressed and worried and anxious, I'd get a tummy ache, which was really interesting because it wasn't until my own dad spoke to me and really said, darling, do you realise that those tummy aches, they're when you feel worried? And we developed a way together of identifying that actually every time I get a tummy ache, I just need to sit and think about what my worries are and then share those worries with my own mum and dad. So actually, there are so many practical things that parents can do just to take a really solution-focused approach.
Brilliant, we'll come into that in a minute. Can you just take a step back? You said something about school refusal, and I know on our YoungMinds Parents Helpline we hear that all the time. But I think actually parents perhaps really don't understand what that is or realise that there are so many children, we hear every day, but so many children who are not going to school because of anxiety. Do you want to say a little bit more about what we mean by school refusal?
Yes, I mean, we have a huge contingency of children and young people that we hear about through our Parents Helpline who, for many different and varied and complex reasons, really, really struggle to go to school. But actually it's not as simple as just saying, I'm really suffering with anxiety, therefore I'm not going to school. There's so much stigma and shame, and parents often feel that they can't go to the school and say, look, my child is suffering with anxiety, we need to get signed off sick, this is the process that needs to be recognised and there needs to be support in place. Often what happens is a child is experiencing really acute anxiety, but often so is the parent. It's really difficult, isn't it? Because as a parent, you sort of feel responsible for what's happening. You do blame yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Parents often blame themselves. They just want to find a solution. They just want to make it better. But then they're really, really worried about attendance records. Am I going to get fined? How is it going to be viewed? But parents need permission just to say, look, this parenting malarkey, it never came with a manual in the first place. I'm a bit overwhelmed, I'm a bit out of my depth, this is really tough stuff here. And actually, is my child well enough to be in school at the moment? Or are they accessing all the pastoral support that should be in place within that school? So I think really, it's really tough because we want school-based professionals to have a greater level of understanding, to know how to support children who are suffering with anxiety.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. And I thought, again, what you said was really interesting because we don't want to make parents worry unduly. And I know it's really hard to say there's a definitive list of what to worry about and what not. But are there things that you could outright say, actually, parents shouldn't be too concerned about this or that? Is there anything you can...
Well, I guess what I would say is a parent is a child's greatest expert. Only you can judge what's truly normal and what's not. So for what's problematic for one child would be indicative of what's quite normal and healthy for another child. So if there hasn't been a really marked change in appetite, sleeping behaviour, angry outbursts, intrusive thoughts, negative thoughts, panic attacks, worrying, if there's sort of, you know, a few little ups and downs, because you have good days, you have bad days, you have a moment where you have an argument with a friend at school, you have a moment where you got told off by your teacher and it left you feeling a bit worried that day. That's quite normal. If you know as a parent that something's just happened, the family dog has just died, oh wow, that's massive. I would expect a child to feel devastated, for there to be tears, tantrums, lots of worrying and lots of uncertainty about how to manage all of the resulting anxiety. But if you're a parent where you're watching a really significant marked change in behaviour, that would be the point at which to say, oh, you know, is there a little bit of a problem? But I guess I would always say prevention is better than cure. So we don't have to start having conversations with our children at the point at which we begin to see a problem.
Absolutely.
I think the best time that anyone can have a conversation with their child is before there's even any problem at all. It's about really having that environment at home where you will talk about thoughts, feelings and behaviours, and really just acknowledging that actually having anxious thoughts and feelings is a normal experience and can be a healthy and positive one.
Excellent, that's a really good point. So if you just joined us, welcome. This is Young Minds Parents Lounge. We're having a conversation today about anxiety in children and what parents can do to cope and manage behaviour in their children. If you think your child is experiencing anxiety, what sort of things can a parent do themselves before seeking professional help?
I think the first thing is about acknowledging the feelings, really validating them, giving a little bit of space for discussion, but considering the age of the child, and the age of your child will determine the type of response that you provide. So for example, if I was the parent of a 5-year-old who was really, really, really anxious, and particularly if that anxiety was triggered by, say, lots of the terrorist events, because that's huge, and we're hearing a lot about that, I'm not going to want to invite lots and lots of discussion about that, because that's going to be quite anxiety-inducing and anxiety-provoking. So I'm going to want to limit the amount of conversation that we have, but yet give it a space that adds value. So for example, one thing that I think would be really nice for parents, and hi anyone that's just logged on, we're just giving a few practical tips and strategies for parents to manage anxiety at the moment. One really nice tip and strategy is about developing what we call a worry box and a worry time. So if you're a parent of a child aged anything from maybe 3 right the way up to say 8 years of age, I would say get a box, a plain box, decorate it together, whatever your child is into, really sort of paint it, decorate it, get anything into it that they absolutely love. Get a bit of a letterbox, make it look a bit like a post box. Have a 30-minute window, typically after school but not close to bedtime, so it might be like 4 till half 4, half 4 till 5, something like that. Have a designated time where your child is encouraged and allowed to really offload, to talk and verbalise and say what their worries are, what their thoughts are, what their feelings are. Now we know that children, they're not robotic, you know, they find it really difficult, really challenging to just go, okay, here's my worry time. Then they're going to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and absolutely go. And they will say whatever's on their mind. And
when something's just impacted, they want to kind of deal with it.
Exactly, and there's that level of immediacy. So it becomes a parent's job when they're trying to implement a worry time to say, darling, we're just going to hold that, and we're going to come back to that this afternoon after school in your worry time. So when it gets to worry time, you can not only encourage the conversations, but you can also encourage your child to maybe draw a picture, a painting, any expression at all. And at the end of the 30 minutes, they can gather up all of the words that they've sort of written out, all of the paintings, pictures, and actually post them in the box. So the concept is really simple and effective. The idea is, once the anxiety is in the box, that's where it stays. But the other component to this is that as a parent, if you're managing that space, you don't even have to have the answers to their questions.
Right.
So, you know,
that
child
is really
can say,
important, I
exactly,
think.
that's the key. So your child can express how they think and feel, but you don't even have to have a solution to that. It's just allowing the space. And the concept is really simple. It's about compartmentalising, reducing the amount of airtime that you give a problem, and that in turn actually reduces the anxiety.
And I think parents really struggle with that, and I think that's why they're often reluctant to tackle those sorts of things, because they feel that they've kind of got to have the answers.
Definitely.
Some of the techniques you describe, I think, will really help parents and really make a massive difference. especially in younger children, but we know these are tried and tested methods.
Yes.
If things don't improve or the anxiety is really significant, what should a parent do? Who should they turn to?
So dependent upon the child's age, that will inform who you're going to turn to. So for a younger child, if your child's in play school, turn to the play school. If they're in nursery, go to the nursery. If they're in school, go to the school. The doctor can be there as well. If you've got an under 5, you can go to the health visitor. They are very, very overstretched. If your needs are not met by your health visitor, you escalate and go to your GP as your next step. If you're dealing with an older, perhaps a teenager, you would probably go directly to the GP and the school. The most important thing is just think simply, who are the professionals that are involved in my child's life day to day, and I'll start to have the conversation.
Excellent. Okay, so we're getting some of our first questions in, which is brilliant. Please come and ask us questions.
Thank you.
We've got a great question from Louise. She says her daughter is 14, is being bullied at school, and is angry all of the time, and has issues, has no friends. She's becoming violent towards mum and siblings, and not engaging in conversation. So what do you advise regarding getting her to open up?
That is a real toughie, and it actually extends beyond just anxiety. And Louise, I really feel for you, first of all. That is a really, really tough situation. Your child, you've explained, is experiencing bullying, and I think, first of all, I would say that needs to be addressed. So is your child being cyberbullied? Is she being bullied at the school? I would certainly address, having a meeting with the school. With your daughter directly, you say that she's being violent, and that really worries me. And that feels as though there's something that needs to be addressed and really change there. What you can do is really sit down with your daughter and say, your feelings are valid. The anger that you're feeling is there for a very real reason, because you have experienced bullying. You didn't provoke it, you didn't want it, you didn't deserve it. So the feelings are valid, but how you're acting out those feelings is the point at which I'm having a difficulty. So it's really separating that out. Feelings from behaviour are two very, very different things. And I think just setting expectations for behaviour at home, being able to stick to the routine, stick to the discipline, because with behaviour must come consequences. The temptation, I know, from a parent's perspective is, when your child is struggling, there is a temptation to change the rules, to get a bit more lax, to get a bit more soft, because you care, because you feel bad, because you know that this child is really suffering and struggling. But actually, Louise, what your little girl needs at the moment more than ever before is emotional stability, and that comes from sticking to that routine, structure and discipline.
And I think parents so often, if they're dealing with a mental health concern, they are really worried about saying the wrong thing and making a bad situation worse, aren't they? And
absolutely. Parents are really, really, really worried about sort of saying the wrong thing. But my feeling on this is actually, don't be afraid of just having the conversation. As a parent, you have authority. And sometimes as parents, we also tend to sort of lose a bit of parental authority at times. It's never too late to sort of claw it back. So just to say, parents out there, if anybody else is sort of watching this and thinking that really resonates for me, I've got a few more questions, particularly any questions around anxiety, please continue to post them, because I'm here for you right now and would love to answer a few more questions.
Keep sending questions in, that's fantastic. So just to go back into this again, at what point should a parent perhaps talk to their GP? Do they need to wait until a problem is really bad?
No. It's such a great question, Joan. I'm so glad you've raised that with me. Prevention is better than cure. And I just desperately want parents to know that what I don't want you to do is to wait and wait and wait and wait. And there's something about giving yourself permission. Giving yourself permission to hold up, to not feel stigmatised, to not feel guilty or bad. You're not wasting anybody's time. You are not doing that. It's the last thing that you should be worried about. As a parent, you honestly, know better than anybody else. You do know when there is a problem. And I would say just trust your instincts. It's never too early just to have the conversation.
And I think sometimes parents feel that they're wasting a doctor's time. Doctors are really busy. And also that they won't be taken seriously, or that it's their fault. So what would you say about that?
I mean, unfortunately, you're quite right, Jo. That's not just a fear, it's a reality for many parents. And it's quite painful and quite difficult for me to acknowledge that, because that's not the reality that I want for parents. But today what I can do is equip any parent out there listening to this thinking, that's me, that's exactly what I'm going through. I would suggest go to the GP with a written bullet pointed list of all of your child's symptoms and behaviours, all of the timelines, the triggers, any services that you've been involved with, and really spell out what is it that you're looking for from the GP.
And is it true that we're seeing anxiety in younger children? I think that's something we're hearing, but in your experience, is it true that more younger children are experiencing anxiety?
I would actually say children across all age groups. I believe that prevalence of anxiety is rising for children of all age groups. And I say that from an empirical evidence perspective because as the manager of the helpline, we speak to 14,000 parents every single year. And actually anxiety is the top most common problem that parents contact us about. So it's just astronomical. It's so huge. And I think the key for parents is just to know, actually you do have it within your gift and your control to just have a really solution-focused approach to make a change for your child. And it is never too late to make a change.
No, that is absolutely excellent. Parents often don't think about their own needs when they're supporting a child who may be actually quite unwell. At YoungMinds we do talk about resilience, you mentioned it, resilience in children, but we also talk about parental resilience. What is that and why is it important?
Well, it's absolutely key. I think the temptation as a parent is that you care so much about your child, you love your child, and all you want to do is make it better for them. It's about recognising that if you don't have the emotional capacity yourself to prioritise your own needs, you are inevitably going to have reduced capacity to support your child. And it's about that internal resource, it's about a parent's stress levels, it's about their bounce back ability, it's about their ability to really be able to sort of manage. So at home, if you've got a child who's really, really anxious, you know, your child may be like a sponge. They may soak up the feelings of adults around them. So if I'm a parent and I've got an 8-year-old at home and I'm feeling stressed and anxious, that's going to feed into how that little 8-year-old is going to feel as well. So we can't underestimate the importance.
And I think parents are so often so busy thinking about their child that actually when we do say that when they call our helpline, they're really surprised. It's the first time anybody's talked about their own needs, and I think that's something parents need to do more for themselves than actually.
I think we can't advocate that strongly enough. You know, parents' feelings and experiences matters. Absolutely. It matters so much.
Excellent. So just to recap, what would you say are the top 2 pieces of advice that you would give to a parent about responding to anxiety in their child?
Well, I'd say the first thing is, firstly, prevention is better than cure. So it's not just about responding to anxiety, it's about raising your children in a way that encourages conversations about anxiety, but about mental health more broadly. So have the conversation with your children all of the time. We can talk about thoughts and feelings and it doesn't have to be a stigma. But secondly, you are your child's greatest expert. Nobody knows what your child is thinking, feeling and how they're behaving better than you. You are your child's greatest expert. Even though parenting doesn't come with a manual, you have got that autonomy. You know when it's a problem. Trust your instincts.
Excellent. So we're just about to finish, but actually I've just seen one great question coming in. If that's okay, I'll just fire
No worries, fire away.
Yeah. So Laura just said, I've got a 5-year-old son. He's very anxious and controlling. He does not want to go anywhere. He struggles to go to school. He does not want to go out at weekends. He's happiest at home. He's very anxious with foods. There's a number of things going on there. Has a restricted diet. We feel he's missing out on life experiences. What can we do?
Okay.
Yeah, it's a complex.
Sorry, what was that mum's name?
Laura.
Laura, okay, brilliant. Laura, first of all, I'm so glad you've posted that question. It's a really, really significant concern that you have. And first of all, I just want to really acknowledge that you are right to have those concerns. I really, really agree with you that it does sound as though your little boy's life is being really restricted. It's having a really significant impact on day-to-day life. So I would definitely suggest if he's 5, if he's already at school, talk to the school. If he's at nursery, talk to the nursery. Definitely talk to the health visitor and the GP as well. You may well access a referral either to a child development centre or possibly to a child and adolescent mental health service, dependent on thresholds in your local area. I'd also suggest really have a think about accessing more qualitative information on the YoungMinds website about anxiety specifically, because you know, anxiety can manifest as fears, as phobias, in a range of different ways.
There's a number of things there, isn't there? Issues with food, issues with going out, issues with school. So I think that's a perfect example.
It is.
It isn't just one clear thing. There's a number of ways in which
absolutely it can manifest in so many ways.
And Laura's son's only 5, so that's massive, isn't it?
I think we don't want that little boy to get to 6, 7, or 8 years old without getting the help that he needs.
Absolutely, Emma. Thank you so much. So insightful. Thank you for sharing your expertise.
You're so welcome.
But yeah, not a problem. We're going to be doing these every month, so do please keep tuned. After we stop broadcasting today, we're going to put up a poll with a number of topics, so do please vote for whatever topic you'd like to see us do next time. Apologies for any questions that have come through we didn't get to answer, and please do follow us on social media at YoungMinds UK. Thank you so much, everybody, and for now, goodbye.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys.